We're all taught this story, right? That human progress was this slow, steady climb. But what if that's not the whole picture? What if there are these ancient, hidden texts that tell a completely different story, one that challenges everything we think we know about our own origins?
And this right here, this quote really sets the tone. It talks about a sudden, violent leap. This suggests that our biggest advancements weren't something we earned over millennia. Nope, they were given to us in a single forbidden transaction. This is the story of the Azazel Protocol.
Okay, so let's get into it. What exactly is this protocol? Well, the idea comes from these really old texts, like the apocryphal Book of Enoch. And it describes this absolutely massive, world-altering event that, let's just say, you won't find in your average history textbook.
So the story goes, you have these beings called the Watchers. Think of them as celestial guardians, right? And they basically broke their biggest rule. They came down to Earth and made a deal. They offered us, well, forbidden knowledge. We're talking advanced science, the secrets of the heavens. And what did they want in return? A connection with humanity, specifically with the daughters of men.
Now, at the very center of this whole cosmic rebellion was one particular figure, Azazel. See, while some of the other Watchers were teaching stuff like astronomy, Azazel's lessons were way more direct. His goal wasn't just to teach us things, it was to fundamentally change us, both physically and psychologically.
And he did this in 3 clear steps. First up, metallurgy, which is really the art of war. Then you have cosmetics, the art of deception. And the grand finale, sorcery, the art of control. You can see how each of these was designed to completely rewrite what it means to be human.
So that first gift, metallurgy. And look, we're not talking about making better farming tools here. The texts are super clear about this. Azazel taught humanity how to forge weapons, swords, knives, shields, the whole deal. This single piece of tech immediately unleashed organized warfare on the world, turning what was simple tribal life into massive bloody conflict.
Okay, so next up is cosmetics. And I know what you're thinking. Makeup? How does that compare to swords? Well, the ancient writers saw this as a really big deal, like a psychological weapon. Teaching people to beautify their eyelids and make expensive jewelry, it wasn't about fashion. It was about introducing vanity, deception, and a kind of inner corruption. A total shift in how we see ourselves and each other.
And that brings us to the third step, the final stage. And honestly, this is the most potent part of the whole protocol. We're moving beyond the physical into the metaphysical, the introduction of sorcery. But the sources are really specific here. We shouldn't think of this as just, superstition and magic tricks. It's something much, much more.
This wasn't just vague hocus pocus. The knowledge they passed down was super specific and systematic. Things like the resolving of enchantments, understanding signs, and knowing the secrets of the moon. This stuff, according to the texts, became the actual foundation for the legendary mystery schools in places like ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. This was a science.
And here is the absolute kicker, the core argument here. What if what we call magic was never really magic at all? What if it was just advanced science, a type of celestial technology given to us by these non-human beings that early humans just couldn't wrap their heads around? Of course they called it magic. What else could they possibly call it?
Now you'd think this incredible, explosive jump in our capabilities would be amazing, right? A paradise on Earth? Wrong. It turns out this forbidden knowledge came with a price tag, and that price was basically the end of the world.
Yeah, the texts are crystal clear on this. The Azazel Protocol wasn't a gift. It was a curse in disguise. You combine advanced weaponry, deep psychological corruption, and this reality-bending science, you unleash forces that humanity was just not ready to handle. It led to so much violence and chaos that the entire civilization just wasn't sustainable anymore. It required a hard reset.
You can literally draw a straight line from one event to the next. The Watchers come down and share their knowledge, humanity masters it, and of course, uses it for war and vanity. The whole planet spirals into chaos and corruption, and the result? A global cataclysm. Yep, what many call the Great Flood that hits the reset button on everything.
So what happened to the guy who started all this? Azazel. Well, he didn't get away with it. The Book of Enoch says he was captured, bound hand and foot, and basically thrown into darkness in the middle of a desolate desert to be held accountable for revealing secrets that should have stayed in the heavens.
Okay, so that's a wild ancient story. But why are we talking about it now? Because if you take a hard look at the world today, the parallels are kind of chilling. It really makes you wonder,
What if the protocol was never truly deactivated? Let's just connect the dots here. That ancient, forbidden art of metallurgy and organized warfare, today, that's autonomous drones and AI-guided weapons. The art of cosmetics and deception, well, now we have AI-driven deepfakes that can create illusions ancient humanity could never have dreamed of. And that final piece, sorcery, that misunderstood celestial science, think about it. What is machine learning and AI if not a modern way of resolving enchantments? It's about finding hidden signs and patterns in our world to predict and, well, control outcomes.
So that leaves us with a pretty huge question, doesn't it? Right now, we are absolutely living through another one of these sudden, violent leaps in our technology. So is the story of the Azazel Protocol just a myth, or is it a warning? Are we being guided once again by the same forces, or are we simply rediscovering an ancient and powerful science that was buried for a very good reason? The past, it seems, may have a lot more to tell us about our future.